Hey guys, what is up? I hope you guys are having a great August 4th. I know that I'm going to be. August 4th is going to be my birthday, so I'm actually going to be taking off this weekend, going to spend time with family and friends, and hopefully I'm going to be doing a double feature with my father. So that's something I'm really excited about. I'm hoping to go see Superman and Fantastic Four again with him. For someone like him who, grew up with DC, but also grew up with Fantastic Four and Avengers. He had a Fantastic Four lunchbox. I think he had an Avengers lunchbox as well. But for him, growing up with these characters, really loving these characters, I'm really excited to see it with him for a second time. And I'm just excited to see both of the films for a second time to get kind of how I feel about them. Because I really wanted to, have spoiler discussions about these movies and in-depth conversations and in-depth thoughts. And I really wanted to see it a second time before I did any of that. And I didn't get to. And so I'm hoping for that opportunity. We may only get to see one. And if we see one, I ain't gonna lie, I kind of want to see Superman over Fantastic Four, but I feel like my dad will enjoy Fantastic Four more. So that's the conundrum I'm going to have to face. But before we get into that and before we get into the rest of the show, I just want to show something that I think is really cool. That's cool with you. And I don't know how any of you who are watching this, if you even know about this comic company, but there's a company called the Rippaverse Comics. Now, some of you may hate Eric July and the Rippaverse, and I think you need to calm down a little bit if you do. Life's not that crazy, okay? This isn't too serious here, but I think any creator, right? If you come up with a unique character, there's probably certain dreams that you have. And for someone who has been interested in writing, who has fiddled with it, is not comfortable yet showing it to the world, but is comfortable enough to fiddle with it and dream about it and dream about stories and telling stories. And, there's characters that I want to tell stories, about in the future. And I have my image of what they look like. And I think having a picture of them is like a dream, right? But I know that eventually, I think everybody dreams about having this character they've had in their head as an action figure. Okay? As an actual action figure. And Eric July has created a lot of really interesting characters. Gooding is probably my favorite character that he made. Chuck Dixon and blanking on the artist. Probably one of the coolest characters in Rippaverse is probably the Horseman. But Eric July made a character called Isom. Now, I just want to show this trailer real quick because it's just cool. It's just cool. And it is showing off their action figure. They have a action figure. So without further ado, I just want to show this. It's cool, man. And it looks good with McFarlane. McFarlane? Tiny. That's cool, man. The character, the figure looks good. Looks really good. That's how it actually looks. That's really good. So, 7-inch scale figure, which is, that's kind of McFarlane's thing. 22 moving parts, so 22 places of articulation. 2 exchangeable heads. Got multiple hands you can mess with. And a 5-panel display box. This would be one of those things where you would want to take it out of the box, I feel like, but you don't want to because the box actually looks really good. And so, a little secret, I'm filming this twice because my screen share did not have my audio. So when I was doing this video before, every time I did screen share, it wasn't sharing me talking and hearing me. So I'm having to film this actually a second time. But the first time I filmed this, I was concerned kind of as I was showing this, because like, yeah, this is really cool, but how expensive are we talking? Because something I want to show, and it's based off what they sell, okay? So I'm going to scroll past some things that we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to get into screen share now, and my audio is working, which is great. But when they sell 2,000 figures, they're going to show a layout of some other figures that they have the potential to be a part of this line, which is Rippaverse Primeval. Now, after 5,000 figures, then you're going to have one of those figures is going to get green light for production. 10,000, figures sold, then you're going to have another figure out for production. And so it looks like we're only going to get 3 figures. Okay, we're getting 3. But if they sell out, then they're going to release another line from McFarlane, which is crazy. I don't know what selling out means. I don't know what number they have in their head of figures that they're going to do. But that's really cool. And I was concerned because I'm reading this and I'm thinking, how expensive are we talking? Like, how expensive this is going to be? And it's actually not that bad. For just the character, okay? Just the character. Now, there's other ones you can do. If you're one of those whales who likes to spend extra money, you got other options. You got the statue you can do. You got the figure you can do. But if you just want the figure, it's $40. $40. That's doing a deal like this and starting out. That's pretty good. I think they even had to raise the price of the DC figures. I have a bunch of McFarlane figures. I love the DC McFarlane figures. I got this one right here that I probably just messed up not putting it, taking it off the little stand. But as I'm trying to put my character back on the stand, I think they've raised the prices of these characters $25 just for the basic ones, and then $30 for the more fancier ones. So the fact that this is only like $10, I mean, they gave you a fancy box and everything. So the fact that that's only $10 more probably than what you would have to pay for maybe some of their more fancier figures at like Walmart, I have to admit that's, big productions which makes the price go down for those figures. I have to admit that's pretty impressive. And I know Eric likes to have all his production in the United States, supporting USA businesses and stuff. So I know that this is definitely getting made in China, but you don't really have any other options when it comes to figures. And to work with a company like McFarlane to produce something like this, and if the figures come out looking like that, that's really impressive. You got to hand it to them. That is really impressive. And so I probably spent too much time on this, but I just wanted to say congratulations to Eric July and the Rippaverse. I just think that's cool. I just think that's really cool. So congratulations to them. And I'm going to hold off for a little bit. I don't really need to be spending money right now, especially after I show you what I got later in the video. But $40 is not bad for a figure. It's not. And it does look good. So will I be snagging an ISOM figure? I don't know. I'm tempted. But it's available for you if you want it. They got comics and stuff as well. But I think I'm done being a shill for someone for free. So I think I'm going to move on and continue with our next topic, which has to do with Fantastic Four. And we're going to get into the box office after we talk about my kind of like quick review of how I thought about the film. But, pun intended, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was pretty good. Now, do I think it's absolutely perfect? No. Go ahead and get my negatives out of the way. And it's a positive too, because I do think that Silver Surfer was good. She was good enough. But And I was like, oh yeah, she did a good job. And they made a reason for it to be her and not, Norman Rad. But then after I left the movie, I was like, well, story-wise, I feel like it would have been better with Norman Rad. Like, literally everything I felt like would have been better with Norman Rad. And, they basically were asking you as an audience member to trust them. They were asking you to trust them. And we have to ask ourselves with Marvel, do they have the right to just let us be quiet and be like, yeah, let them cook? There's that phrase, right? Let them cook. Because they're going to bring you a masterpiece. They're going to bring you something amazing. And I don't know if we can give Marvel that trust anymore with the things they've done in the past and recently. And I could see what the vision of maybe Matt Chapman has. And we'll have to see how everything plays out. But we know that there's going to be a soft reboot of some sort that Marvel's going to do after the events of Secret Wars. Kevin Feige has came out and said this. And so there is still a chance to have Norman Rad, and you can maybe do something really interesting doing the two different universes with Shia LaBeouf and Norman Rad as Silver Surfer. But there's a possibility we're not going to see Norman Rad as Silver Surfer ever again. There's a possibility that we'll just see Shia LaBeouf over and over again. And was Shia LaBeouf cool? She was. But watching it, like I said, every time I'm watching, I'm like, Norman Rad would have been cooler. Norman Rad would have been cooler. Norman Rad would have been cooler. Not during the movie, but after I left, it just marinated in my brain. And how disappointing it was not to have him. And it was. It was. Especially when some of the scenes are awesome. And you're like, that would have been even cooler with Norman Rad. That would have been like, instead of, oh crap, like, because you're in the movie, you're invested because it was a good scene, it would have been like, you would have been just freaking out. Like, I would have been freaking out as a nerd. My wife would have saw me act like a little schoolboy over the excitement of that. And I missed out on that. Honestly, the biggest negative I have about the movie is the end credit scene. I didn't think it was good enough. And maybe that's hypocritical of me because they did a jokey thing with Superman. And I do think James Gunn, when it comes to end credits, I know how he feels about end credit scenes, but to me, if you're going to do them, like, funny things are fine and everything, but, I think you could at least tease the next movie coming. I get you don't want to make promises that you can't keep, but you could show maybe a little bit of something from Supergirl. You could. To tease that movie. Right? To tease the next movie, I think that's a good idea. Keep people hyped. But I did not feel like the end credit scene for Fantastic Four was good enough. Just didn't think it was. Personally, for me, just thought it was subpar. There's some interesting elements in there, sure. But I just personally thought it could have been a lot better. As far as my positives, I thought Thing was great. Not much of him. I want to see him more. I want to see Thing fighting someone. But I thought Thing was great. I thought Johnny Storm was great. I thought Sue Storm was great. I was shocked by Pedro Pascal. To me, Pedro Pascal does not work with Reed Richards. I'm like, you're going to get this dude. You've seen everything going on with Pedro Pascal, Mr. Touchy. You're going to get Mr. Touchy to play Reed Richards, the guy that, is just total opposite of that. You're going to make that work? And I thought they kind of did. Like, enough. It was good enough. Now, do I think someone else could play Reed Richards better? Sure, probably. But I thought Pedro Pascal did good enough, and I thought he did an okay job. I thought he did a pretty good job. I think the biggest praise probably is Matt Chapman. I think he did a great job. I don't know if he wrote the film. But his pitch of the 60s aesthetic, the reason he got the job, it totally made sense why he got the job. I'm really happy for him. And I hope we see more of him in the future. Getting to my biggest positive was definitely Galactus. I'm not sure how I felt about him going out, when it came to the end of the movie. But Galactus, his aura, his presence, you felt it. And it was cool. And my wife seeing me geek out over Franklin Richards and the possibilities of Franklin Richards and what we might see from Franklin Richards dealing with Galactus. If you've read, for example, this, you may know what I'm talking about. Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four. You might know what I'm talking about when it comes to Galactus. But color me excited. Okay? Color me excited because I am. I really, really am. And for the future of Fantastic Four. Now, someone asked me, a friend called me and said, hey, is Marvel back? And I couldn't tell him yes. Couldn't tell him yes. And I think they haven't given us a reason to really trust that Marvel's back. Especially when you hear a story that I wasn't even going to talk about, but Rebecca Romijn, who plays Mystique, that someone was asking her, like, how's everything been? Are you excited about things? Are you done filming Avengers Doomsday? And her answer was interesting because she said, I'm not sure because they're not done writing the script. They're filming the movie, ballooning a budget, probably not knowing what their plans are for any of the CGI fight scenes. So they're probably wasting money when it comes to the CGI. They're probably making these VFX artists work on things that are not even going to be in the movie. And we have to trust that that's going to be, that chaos is going to turn into a wonderful masterpiece. I don't know. Now, what's funny is I do see how some chaos like that could turn into something crazy and amazing that you're not going to get otherwise, even if you have this completed script or whatever. But I think that's the very slim minority, and I think the majority possibility is that that's not good. That's not good. And as we start to transition from me doing the review and into the box office, I think it's going to show that Marvel's got to do better. Marvel has got to do better. Now, everyone's going to have their opinions when it comes to what's going on with Marvel and what's going on with Superman. And I'm pretty positive with Superman, and we're going to have to see what happens with Marvel. And I'm going to lean on positive with Marvel. I don't know, I don't remember exactly where Superman was during its first week. I think, all things said, I think we were maybe at a higher dollar amount worldwide. I think. Maybe internationally, I think it did do better than Superman did at first. Domestically, Superman did better its first weekend, I believe. But there's a difference. I think Marvel's been on a decline recently. But DC has really had some bad films. Or people were not satisfied with them. And no one had some bombs. Financial bombs. And I do think there's a reality that people are just not going to the movies. They're just not. People aren't going to the movies. And you think about, international. And then there is a clear sign that it's not just maybe the fact of superhero movies. Like, is there a superhero fatigue? Maybe. Internationally. I don't think in the United States there is. I think there's a bad movie fatigue in the United States. But I do think there's a fatigue going to the movies. I think that's the fatigue. And people don't trust going to the movies anymore. Maybe the cost, everything involved. I was saying I hope to do a double feature. We may not get to. And it might do with just financial reasons we may not get to. Just the cost of going to the movies. To do that, to go to 2 different movies, which was amazing for me growing up and would be amazing this weekend if I get to. But a lot of people aren't going. And you got to give them a reason to. Now, I think Fantastic Four and Superman gave you a reason to go to the movies. And I think no matter what, even if Fantastic Four and Superman are equal, I think Superman will still be probably the bigger winner when it all said and done, because of DC being on such a fail streak, and because people have really loved this movie. Audiences have really loved this movie, and going forward, people are going to remember that, and you're not going to have these balloon budgets that Marvel has. And so I think there's possibilities that Superman are going to have a better chance of making, more profitable movies. Okay? I'm not necessarily saying a bigger box office movie necessarily, but they have the chance, I think, of having more profitable movies because they write the scripts before they film them. The VFX guys know what they're doing beforehand. They finish the movies, hopefully in budget. They're making movies that are not super expensive. Like, they're going to make Supergirl, which Supergirl may be it's going to be cheaper than Superman, I believe. Superman was their big dog, their financial big dog that they probably spent more money on to make good. But their next film is Clayface, which is literally a $40 million movie. It's a $40 million movie, guys. Whereas the next two films, or really the next film we're going to see is Spider-Man. Spider-Man will do great. But that's Sony. The money, basically all that money is going to Sony, basically. And then you have, Marvel with Disney, and your next movies are going to be your big Avengers movies. Guys, if we have a 500 million, 600 million, 600 million, I don't know if this movie's going to get to 700. If Superman gets to 700, that's a huge success. If Fantastic Four gets to 700, that's a success. That's great. I don't think either of them are going to get there. We could be looking at like a 600 million something dollar for both. But if Avengers Doomsday only makes $600 million, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. Because they're going to have two huge movies like that. Now, I hope both of those would be billion-dollar movies. I hope that one and Secret Wars would both be billion-dollar movies. I hope they get Hugh Jackman involved. All those things. I hope they bring the heat for those movies. But we may have a market cap, where only a certain amount of people are still interested in these movies right now until they can be won over. And we may have a few years of these superhero movies only bringing in like $600 million. And it seems that DC may have a better plan of success when it comes to that type of possibility. Whereas I don't believe Marvel is ready for that possibility. So it's something I got to think about. It's only the first week, so we got to see how these things play out. But the dollar amounts have definitely had bigger drops, in my opinion, than Superman has. So we're just going to have to see how it keeps on chugging along. But anyway, guys, what do you think about the box office numbers? I would love to hear your opinion when it comes to that. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about, and I'm only going to hit on this briefly because me having to film this again, there's a lot we have to get through. I thought about playing the trailer, and I'm not going to. But we got to talk about this Batman Azteca movie. I wasn't going to because I don't want to yuck on anyone's yum. Okay? I'm not that excited about it. To me, it's kind of cringe. The essence of it is kind of cringe to me. Especially talking to my wife about it, who is, well, I'm going to leave that private. But we're talking about the history of the Aztecs and everything going on with that. And, they definitely portray certain things a certain way in the trailer. Okay? And I understand it's a complex situation. Okay? But whereas Red Sun handles it in a very interesting way and really plays on the idea of the way the world was, and then, okay, this is the way the world was with this belief system, the things they did there, now put Superman in it, and let's see what happens there. To me, they paint a narrative that's maybe not that truthful to set up events to play with when it comes to the idea of Batman and his rogue gallery being made within the Aztec universe or the Aztec history, but fitting in a way that fits more modern day's version of that. And I have no problem with Two-Face being a Spaniard, conquistador, okay? I have no problem with Batman being an Aztec warrior, okay? But watching the trailer, you could definitely feel like maybe some of these things could be more fleshed out in a better way. And it just seems not, maybe a little lazy, a little. I encourage you to check the trailer out. I would say if you check it out, definitely check it out actually in Spanish. I've seen both trailers. To me, the Spanish trailer seems less cringe. And not only that, the trailer they showed, I don't know if they showed it, they must have showed it during the Comic-Con. They showed a different clip or a different kind of trailer, and it was more brutal. It was more intense. And, hearing Joker, their version of Joker in Spanish and stuff, it was a more intense and more interesting. So if you're going to check it out, definitely encourage you to actually check it out in Spanish, which usually I would not do. Usually I just prefer to watch it in my, English dub, especially animated. But I have to admit, it sounded better in Spanish. And I saw this person, and he made a comment on Twitter, and he said, "Let's not demand historical accuracy from a passage that clearly plays with the absurd for the sake of entertainment, but rather ensure they make the most of the character within the indigenous indigenous world, I guess. Kudos," and he said kudos to the actor who voices the character. And as for star talent, no need to even mention it. But I think that's lazy. I think that's a little lazy. Because stories can define accuracy. Stories can define what's true. We can watch Sinners, right? And I understand it's a world of vampires, okay? But when I see the racist guys show up in Sinners to kill one of the main characters, the plan was to kill a whole bunch of people, but the vampires kind of got to that before they could come. I can sit there and watch the movie and go, yeah, like, pretty accurate. Or when the white vampires show up to the party and they don't get invited in, I can kind of understand why they don't get invited in. Because of the historical truth around that, right? And so I just say this is that I think this would be a more interesting concept if they stayed more centered into what could be considered the actual truth of it. And the complexities of that. The complexities of the things that the Aztecs did to their own people, to the tribes around them. And yeah, there's issues on both sides, but maybe having a Batman that's in the chaos of all those things, fighting against those things, would just be more poignant, more interesting, and it would be probably a better experience. Maybe they do target those things. Maybe they will bring those things up. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But have the memes been funny? Yes, they have. And people can get mad at everybody about it, but the reality is they've been kind of funny, you know. But, you know, like making jokes about like Joker's the villain because Joker actually wants to work with the Spaniards and save the children, you know, stuff like that. But we'll have to see. Am I going to buy this? No, I'm not going to buy this. I'm not going to spend the money on it digitally. Maybe, yeah, not going to. Will I watch it on Max when it finally comes out? I definitely will. I will definitely check it out then, and hopefully it'll be a good experience. But right now, I'm leaning towards cringe, but like I said, I do encourage you to check out the Spanish version because I think the Spanish version is definitely less cringe. I think it's a better experience, and so I definitely encourage you to check that one out before you decide either way. And this is a new studio. I hope it does well for them. I would love to see these other animated studios. More animation is a good thing. More hand-drawn animation is a good thing. So if this studio can do really well and they can make more animated films, and especially maybe even inside the DC universe, I think it'd be really cool. I would have preferred the character, I'm saying the character's name right, Aztec. I would have preferred an Aztec movie. An Aztec animated movie, but maybe the only way they could have got the funding from Warner Brothers is if they did it about Batman. But I think Aztec would have been a much more interesting experience. I think that would have been something I would be more interested in watching, actually. Which would have fit within the DC universe. But that's just me. But anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Did I make some of you very angry at me? Maybe you think my opinions are not correct. And if so, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below and let me know what you think. But anyway, on to the next thing. We're going to talk about this a little bit. I don't think this is it's kind of a nothing burger, really, to me. We have James Gunn came out on his, it's not X, Threads. Why was I forgetting Threads? Oh, terrible. Okay, so let's see if I'm still logged on Threads before I pull this up. Because I had not thought about pulling this up. Let's see if I can use it just to find. I don't even want to log back in. I just really want to show. Okay, it's going to let me, so we're good. It's going to let me. All right. So, he had kind of came out and said some things. And, you know, and basically kind of released that he is working on what he said was a Superman 2 script. Now, turns out that's not the case. It's going to have Superman super involved in it, but it's not a Superman 2 script. So, like I said, this is kind of a nothing burger necessarily. But, you know, let me get to, that's him talking about more serious stuff. And it says, okay, yeah. So someone kind of said, like, hey, is this actually a Superman 2? And he goes, yes, sorry. This is the same movie. So the same movie that he talked to Josh Horowitz about. And he said Superman has a major role in it, and it's not Superman 2. And, so someone said, so not a direct sequel to Superman. And he said, I'm not sure how you define direct sequel. I pretty much think of Peacemaker Season 2 as a direct sequel. So story after next story after next story. Like continuation of the things, the characters that, you know. Like I've heard him talk about this before, like with Rick Flag Sr., that his view is that the story of Creature Commandos and Superman and Peacemaker Season 2 is kind of like a trilogy for Rick Flag's character. You know, so I can understand how he looks at things and explains things, can get people confused, but he is not technically working on a Superman sequel. He's just going to have Superman heavily involved in it, which maybe you can kind of look at as a Superman sequel. I would say this, I do think we need an actual Superman sequel, like a true Superman sequel where the focus is on Superman. If you do, have this movie with Superman in it and he's involved in it, I actually am more excited for that right now. I'm hoping we see something with him with like Batman and Wonder Woman. I think that's really important right now with the DC universe. We need to get our Batman, we need to get our Wonder Woman out there, and maybe this is one of the ways that we can do that. And I have a feeling maybe that's what we're heading towards. He said it wasn't a world's finest, but he didn't say it wasn't like a Trinity. And he really didn't even say it was a world finest. And we have to be honest. We have to be honest, guys. James Gunn lies, right? Every time you hear something he said, you just got to remember in your head an opportunity that needs to. He's extremely honest, but he's also a liar. So you have to balance those things out. So when he says certain things, you got to be careful. And that was the first time I've heard him say something in front of Josh Horowitz. And you could tell how uncomfortable he was with it, and he didn't want to give the answer away. And so I do think there's something to be said there, that we could be seeing a world's finest still, even though he said that it wasn't. It's kind of like, okay, sure. But they do bring up in the thread, and this last thing I'm really going to bring up about it, but he says, hey, is this still a ways off? And he goes, it's a ways off. And he has to be pretty busy. I mean, they said they're only going to come out with 2 live action movies a year, which this coming year is going to be Supergirl. Superman was it for 2025, but you're going to have Supergirl, and then you're going to have Clayface. You're going to have the Lanterns, which is going to be your one live action show. We might get another live action show, but we're not going to get another movie in 2026. You have your next movie being, your Batman 2. Maybe this comes out in 2027. Maybe. Or maybe even longer. It depends on they stick to that rule. We may have to wait till 2028. 2028 before we see this movie from James Gunn. Because they have other ones that are more ready to go, right? They have Sergeant Rock. Sergeant Rock is definitely more ready to go than this movie is. James Gunn's just writing the script. That Sergeant Rock script is done. It's ready to go. So whatever movie he's working on, we may not see it till 2028. We may not see it for a couple years. So we'll just have to see. Or maybe James Gunn movies, his movies go first. His movies are more important. Maybe they go first. I don't know. But I do think we need to get these things out there. I'm hoping we see Batman and Clayface. But whatever he's working on, I'm very curious to hear about it, and I'm very curious to see more that we'll hear about it, how that plays out. But anyway, on to Peacemaker, okay? Some cool things I want to share about Peacemaker, but something I want to share first, okay? Because they just found this, and it's terrifying, okay? It is terrifying. I wanted to watch season 1 again. I don't know if I'm going to get to or not. Maybe I'll have a chance to really binge all the episodes by myself one day. It's not something my wife's very interested in. Maybe the second season she'll be a little bit more interested in. But they have found these bugs, okay? They have found these bugs in Australia, okay? What does that look like to you? If you've watched Peacemaker Season 1, what does that look like to you? I'm going to play this video, and it's kind of terrifying. These bugs have been found in Australia. And they look a little similar. They look a little similar to definitely different, but they look similar to the bugs from Peacemaker Season 1. That, not so much, but when the wings open, oh crap. crap, man. That's terrifying. That's terrifying. But I just thought I'd show that real quick because I thought that was interesting. But I think this is a good synopsis of basically everything we really know at the moment about Season 2 of Peacemaker that's coming out in later August. Something I'm definitely excited about. Basically a month away. We're basically a little less than a month away from seeing Peacemaker Season 2. And this is some of the things we've learned. There's going to be more characters from Superman that are going to appear other than the Justice Gang. So we may see some Daily Planet characters. We might see Lex Luthor, but there's more characters we're going to see. When it comes to helping broaden the world and broaden the universe, it does establish that there's at least 100 universes in the DC universe. So there's like 100 different Earths, at least. I don't think that our movie is going to be setting up a Secret Wars type event like Crisis on Infinite Earths. I do not want that. But it does open up possibilities, like Earth 3, for example. I don't think they're going to go with the Earth 2, but an Earth 3 with a crime syndicate, I just got this weird feeling that we're heading that direction. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just kind of a feeling I have that might be something we head towards in the future. It is set 1 month after the events of Superman. Supposedly, Peacemaker travels to a parallel dimension where he's a hero to have a better life. We saw that in the trailer. I don't know if y'all guys watched the trailer. I thought about reacting to it, but I watched it. I couldn't help it. I watched it early, and I just didn't think maybe there wasn't necessarily a need to just get a copyright strike, so I didn't watch it on the channel. It's not for kids, like the same thing as the Season 1. Season 1 was not for kids. This is not going to be for kids. They need to be working on their kids' content. Kids' content definitely needs to be worked on for the DC Universe and DCU properties. We need to have kids' content that's for families that everyone can enjoy, but are DCU. We definitely need to work harder on that. There's going to be a brand new opening dance sequence. This was news that came out, after Ozzy Osbourne had passed. They talked about how one of his songs is in the show. And just so happens that the first episode, the 6th episode, and the 8th episode, all episodes that were directed by James Gunn, is the ones that all the cast said that they loved the most. Take that for what you will. And we already kind of heard about this, but Michael Rooker is playing an eagle hunter who is after Eagly, and he's basically like Eagly's arch nemesis. He is their Lex Luthor. And so am I excited for this? Yes, I am. And we're just going to have to see how it plays out. I'm very hopeful this is going to be really good. And more so, same thing with Superman, I'm almost more excited to see how it's going to broaden this universe, this new DC universe that we are traveling into. Another thing that I think I want to share real quick before we get into kind of a possibly negative story, I just want to share something a little optimistic, something really kind and thoughtful, and I think it's something that shows something really special about James Gunn. And, they had different panels on Comic-Con, and one of the panels they had was Jim Lee's, I think, what do they call it? They call it like Jim Lee and Friends, I think is what the panel's called. And really it's a way to kind of introduce more things and promote DC stuff coming in the future. And James Gunn came out and shared this. And I thought it was just really kind and touching, and I thought it was really good.
These kind of movies because I respect and love what these people do so much. And I'm going to be very honest with you right now. I was looking at that art that you guys did, and it touches me so deeply. It's so beautiful. This is the art form that I grew up loving, And the fact that the three of you, really, and Tom knows because we're friends, but I just met you guys for the first time, and it's like, it's so wonderful what you do. I appreciate it so much. And I couldn't have made Superman. The reason why I'm so happy to be here today with you guys, because this is the real fans here, right?
Okay. Now, the last part is being a showman, sure, but I think that part where he's starting to almost tear up, I think that was genuine, okay? James Gunn's not an actor, okay? Does James Gunn lie sometimes? Sure, but I think that's where he's being really honest and truthful, and you could tell it means a lot to him. It means a lot to him. And to have leadership like that for someone who really does care about these properties, really does care about not just storytelling, but comic book storytelling, I think that's the type of leadership that I'm really excited that we have over DC, even if I disagree with certain things. Like, I think James Gunn maybe loves Tom King a little too much. I'm glad they're friends. I think Tom King seems, every time I see an interview of him, seems like a really nice guy. But some of his deconstructionisms worry me when it comes to some of the stories and how that could play into the DC universe. Definitely kind of worries me a little bit. But at least James Gunn truly loves the material. At least he truly loves comic books and the storytelling that is comic books. And that is the type of leadership I'm happy to have. Someone who really, really cares. Not just has talent. James Gunn has talent. But James Gunn also cares. And he's invested. As a fan, he's invested. And that's really cool. To the point it almost makes him get teary-eyed. So, I just thought that was cool. Thought I would share it. And, plus, I want to share something positive before I talk about something kind of negative. Okay? Now, I don't really know if it's really worth getting into the, the job sightings for this. Okay, let me put this on screen share so everybody can see it a little better. I don't know if it's worth getting into all that. I think it's okay just to share the story. And I think it's going to be enough. And I'm leaning on negative. There's some positive, maybe possibilities. Some wishes I would give out that maybe would make this more positive. But it kind of seems like WB Games hasn't really learned their lessons. With everything that's gone on with WB Games. The constant failures that we've had with WB Games recently. To losing studios that are just going to be gone forever. To not getting the Wonder Woman game. Ready Player One game. Not Ready Player One. Player One? The studio that made the Multiverses game. Which should have not been a live service game. Should have been not a one and done, but should have been a game they put out, people loved and played, and then put out a sequel. And then another sequel. But now the studio is just dead. You would think they would learn their lesson about live service. But I'm guessing with Rivals and Marvel Rivals and them wanting to get something out like Marvel Rivals, they are making a game that's clearly going to be focused on possibilities of being live service. And so it says, Warner Bros. Games Montreal is making a AAA live service game based on an iconic DC property, per a job listing mentioning post-launch monetization and ongoing content, built on Unreal Engine 5 for console and PC, likely not Batman. So, what am I leaning on? What am I hoping this is? They're doing it. It doesn't matter if I don't want them to do it, they're doing it. So, what do I hope this is? I'm hoping this is Teen Titans. Maybe just call it Titans, I don't know. But you could do some really unique things with Titans. Whenever I've played Gotham Knights, I have lots of issues with Gotham Knights. Mainly storytelling, narrative things I have issues with. But the world is like, there's a clear difference between Batman Arkham Knight, that world of Gotham, and then the world of Gotham they gave us, and their version is subpar. their events, their opportunities where your characters could walk into something unique is subpar towards Arkham Knight. But when you play that game, you do kind of think with the mechanics and everything they built, it's like, I wish they would have just made this a Teen Titans game. I think the mechanics would have worked better for a Teen Titans game. I think there would have been less pressure on the studio if it would have been a Teen Titans game, because you wouldn't have had that comparison to Batman. I think in all ways it would have been better. And I think it did make money. It did make money, which I guess is the reason why their studio didn't get shut down. But, you know, does Montreal need to be the one making a live service game? Does Montreal need to be making the competitor to Marvel Rivals? I would say no. Honestly, this is probably terrible, but to say, there's a strong reality that maybe a North American game studio, if it's Canada or United States, probably doesn't have to, or maybe, I even say this, maybe even some European countries like London, some of these other places, probably have no business trying to compete with the Marvel Rivals. Economically, probably don't need to be trying to play in that kitchen, to do the things that Marvel Rivals does. And I don't know. I don't think they've learned their lesson. But if you're going to do a live service type game within the DC universe, Teen Titans is where I think you should go. I think if you go Justice League, you're going to be critiqued way too hard. You're going to have too much on you to really succeed and people be happy with. I think the way to go is Teen Titans. And I think you already have your I think you just lay into the type of gameplay you set up with Gotham Knights, expand on it, make it better. You have two characters that could be a part of that, ready to go with Nightwing and Robin, and you lean into Teen Titans. And I have concerns with that, with this studio, for many reasons. Some are based off the ideologies of the people that make these games and how they handled things that I thought narrative-wise made the story worse. And they were focused on things that they could, if they would have been focused on other things, could have made a better game. But we'll just have to see. We'll have to see how it plays out. But what about you guys? Is that something you're trusting? Are you happy about this? Are you happy that we're coming out with a live service game? We're probably not seeing this game for years. For years. So, I mean, just remember when we finally heard about Gotham Knights, it was like 2 to 3 years, something like that, before we even got the game. So just keep that in mind, but I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Something else I wanted to share, I forgot about this on the TV segment, so I'm just going to hit it on for a second, just real quick. That's Atrocitus. But this actor right here, blanking on his name, he's a good actor. He's a really good actor. Paul Ben Victor. Okay, he's getting body scanned for his role, and what's his role? His role's a mystery, but they're calling it Anton, and everybody's assuming that he's going to be Atrocitus. I wonder if he's actually going to be Kilowog. I'm rooting for Kilowog. Now, he might be Atrocitus. But I'm rooting for Kilowog. I want Kilowog in this show. I think that would be great. But that's just me. What do you think? Let me know down below. I was going to get into the DC mural. I think there's a lot of people that have talked about it. I think there's a lot of interesting things with it. Where did I go? What happened? Okay, here we go. there's a lot of interesting things we could talk about with it. I think I'm going to save this for a separate video because I want to do a video about where we could maybe see some of these characters within the DC universe. But I will say this. The biggest thing I heard about this mural is that there wasn't many Justice Society characters in it. And they were upset that some of the characters, like, for example, Wildcat, seemed to be placed in, like, the 80s. Here's my theory. Okay, I have a theory about this. And my theory is this. I don't think the Justice Society is known to the public. I think some of the people that are a part of the Justice Society are known to the public. But I think the Justice Society in the DC Universe is going to be a secret. And so when you see some of the characters that are in the mural, I think some of those characters are just the ones that history, the overall history, has been able to record. Maybe some that only a few people in society know about. And that's currently my theory with that. So, before we end it off, I just want to share some things real quick. Before we end off the show, I hope you guys had a good time. I have a lot of Nightwing stuff over here. And I just want to show some of the things I currently got when it comes to comic books. I don't really have a comic book story that I want to talk about, really. Right now, I can't go buy a bunch of comic books. The only ones I'm collecting right now, the one I'll always collect, is Nightwing. So I've been reading that. That's been pretty interesting, what they're doing with that right now. But I got my Tom Taylor, Bruno Redondo omnibus. And, dude, this thing's really cool. I thought this thing was really cool. Just the way that they designed it, just the book itself. I got a ways to go. I'm starting from the very beginning of Nightwing, and not exactly, because I'm not starting from the New Teen Titans with Marv Wolfman. I am reading that right now, but I am also reading Chuck Dixon's Compendium 1. I'm almost done with it, but I'm reading Compendium 1 of Chuck Dixon's Nightwing right now, and I'm going to go all the way through, at least with the omnibuses. I may skip a couple things, but I'm going to go all the way through until I get to this and read this. So I got a while to go from that, but I have been enjoying what I've been reading from Chuck Dixon, and I don't think I'm going to like everything, but I know I'm going to like the art, and I think certain aspects, I'm very excited to see how I feel about some of the things that Tom Taylor does with Nightwing. Some things Tom Taylor does I hate, and some things he does I really enjoy and think's really interesting. So we're just going to have to see. I've been collecting the comics, but I try to keep the comics safe, so I haven't read, and I've read some things that Tom Taylor's done, but I haven't read the whole story. So maybe some of the things I haven't liked, maybe he'll change my opinion on. I got Dan Watters' first volume of his run, hardcover. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm really excited to flip through that again. And showed this off earlier, but I got Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman. Kind of their version of Compact. It's a little bigger. I may actually like this size a little better, maybe. But it is a little bit more expensive. And these need to be at Walmart's. Same thing with DC Compact. I got my Superman and Batman. They don't call it World's Finest. I think they should right here. But Jeff Loeb. I'm really excited to check this out and read this. 12 issues story for $10. That's a great deal. So I'm really excited to check this out. And I have never read The Authority. I have a couple Authority comics, but I haven't just cracked them open and read them. I'm really excited to get into The Authority. I'm really excited about that. And so I'll be checking this out again. $10. And again, DC, I need to make a video just about this, and I think I'll put it on Twitter. These need to be in Walmart's. Why are they not? Why are you not having these in the book section of Walmart's? At every Walmart. that needs to change. It needs to happen soon. I hope it does. But that's just some of the things I've gotten recently. I may not be getting many things in the future, so I've... Oh, one more thing. 1 second. I can't believe I almost forgot this. It might be the thing I'm most excited about Nightwing. I am. But I thought I should share this. Got Comic Odyssey hardcover. I want to collect, besides Nightwing, I want to collect all the events, the DC events, and maybe it'll take me 30 years or whatever, but the main DC events, the ones that involve like all the characters or a whole bunch of characters, I want to collect those. And just have a shelf full. So I have Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I have this as far as my big events go, and so I need to slowly start filling that up. And so I was able to get that in hardcover, and I'm really happy and excited about it. So I almost didn't share that, but anyway, let me know some things y'all been collecting, some things you have been checking out, maybe some things you've been reading recently. And yeah, guys, I think that's going to end the show. I hope y'all have enjoyed it. If you stayed this long, I have to thank you. And guys, without further ado, whatever you're doing, wherever you're going, I hope you're having a good one. Peace.